Pollen-pistil interaction. Q29. Explain the events that occur during pollen-pistil interaction. All the events from pollen deposition on the stigma until pollen tubes enter the ovule together referred to as pollen-pistil interaction. Pollination does not guarantee the transfer of the right type of pollen, compatible pollen of the same species as the stigma. The pistil has the ability to recognize the pollen, whether it is of the right type compatible, or of the wrong type incompatible. If it is of the right type, the pistil accepts the pollen and promotes its germination. If the pollen is of the wrong type, the pistil rejects the pollen by preventing pollen germination on the stigma or the pollen tube growth in the style. The ability of the pistil to recognize the pollen followed by its acceptance or rejection is the result of a continuous dialogue between pollen grain and the pistil. This dialogue is mediated by chemical components of the pollen interacting with those of the pistil. Following compatible pollination, the pollen grain germinates on the stigma to produce a pollen tube through one of the germ pores. The contents of the pollen grain move into the pollen tube. Pollen tube grows through the tissues of the stigma and style and reaches the ovary. If pollen grains are shed at two-celled condition, a vegetative and a generative cell. In such plants the generative cell divides and forms the two male gametes during the growth of pollen tube in the stigma. In plants which shed pollen in the three-celled condition, pollen tubes carry the two male gametes from the beginning. Pollen tube, after reaching the ovary, enters the ovule through the micropyle and then enters one of the synergids guided by filiform apparatus.